I want to go through some settings and systems or the setup and general workflow that I use for reflected ceiling plans. I have a project sample file here. It's missing a whole bunch of library parts and stuff, but it'll get the idea across. So for reflected ceiling plans, if we look at, let me collapse some of this down here. So we're going to go to our reflected ceiling plan views here. The first thing I do is in the layer combinations, and this I believe should be set up in the latest template iteration. But we should have an RCP layer combination, but we should also have, so let's go ahead and create a new one, and we'll call this reflected ceiling plans dash 3D doc, and we'll call this one dash floor plan. Now the floor plan, reflected ceiling plan, is going to have all of the plumbing fixtures, all of the casework, all of the appliances and equipment. It's going to have everything that you need to show from the cut line down. So that'll be that one. And then this layer combination here is only going to have, so I'm going to turn off all layers for this layer combination for the 3D doc, and I'm going to put only the ceilings, beams, trim, we'll put interior and exterior and non-intersecting, sure, we'll put all of that trim on here. Basically everything from the cut plane up. We can also put our grids, I'm not sure where the grids are at on this one, and then we can also put those grids on this one as well, and that's going to allow us to line these up on the layout. So for, let's just say this first floor RCP, the next part of this is that we want to have a graphic override. So here's reflected ceiling plans layer combination. We'll call this one floor plan, and then we'll create another reflected ceiling plan for the 3D document. So we have two reflected ceiling plan layer combinations and graphic overrides. You could also have model view options for plan and 3D document, etc. For the 3D document, we don't really need to override anything because we're really only showing what's on the ceiling, and we want to show those sort of at their authentic line weight, as opposed to the floor plan where let's take a look at what this rule says. So it's saying that all of the casework, appliance, plumbing fixtures, etc. is going to be grayed out, and that's what we want. That's really kind of the critical thing there. For RCPs, generally speaking, we're showing, I prefer to show RCPs with the door and the window, but without the markers. And that gives you like graphic consistency from one view to the other. So if we go ahead and say, okay, there we get our door swings, we get our window symbols, we're able to see like, you know, the door swing relationship to the light fixtures, which is kind of the critical thing. So we'll go ahead and save that as our floor plan view. Now, if there were plumbing fixtures or anything like that, you know, let's just go ahead and grab, I'm just going to grab a toilet as an example, and dump that on here, right? So that shows with the transparent fill and everything that we want for the plumbing fixtures. You know, dump that in there. It would be the same thing with the appliances and everything else. It's going to show gray, transparent, and dashed, so that when this is overlaid onto the 3D document component, it's not going to mask out whatever's on the ceiling. So from here, we're going to go to Document and New 3D Document. We'll call this First Floor RCP and create. And then I'm going to save this to the same folder. Right, so now I have the 3D document symbol here and the floor plan symbol here. These are going to composite together to become the final view. For this one, I'm going to go in and change this to that layer combination. Always uncheck the ignore zoom and rotation. Graphic overrides should be 3D document, so I'm not actually overriding anything here. And then from here, I can actually go into the 3D document settings, not the view settings, but the 3D document settings. And I'm going to say that this is my reflected ceiling plan. I'm going to show above stories. I don't actually know how many stories up this is. We'll just say 4. You know, it's probably about 10 or 12 feet up that we need to show that offset. The cut plane, I'll put this at 4 feet. Should be the same as the floor plan cut plane. And we'll go ahead and say okay here. And actually, I'm just realizing that I probably also need my roof layers on here for the 3D document as well. Just looking for any other layers that might need to be on for that layer combination. Okay, there we go. So now we see our roof elements here with their actual underside. So if we were showing the roof in the floor plan, it would only be able to show the top surface of that roof. We could technically set the roof to show on all relevant stories, home story 1 story down. We could get this to show on the floor plan, but it would show the top surface of this roof. Let's revisit the 3D document settings one more time, and we will look at the uncut appearance of this 3D document. So we're going to say uniform pens for uncut elements, and we're going to say that the pen for the uncut elements is pen 91. That's an always white pen. We're going to say that we have the surface foreground. This is basically the same as we would want an exterior elevation or interior elevation to show up. Make sure that our sun shadows are not on, and that should be it for that. So now if this roof, for example, on the underside, let's just put, I don't know, something with a pattern, right? So I'm actually seeing the pattern of that ceiling, whatever the actual texture of that ceiling is. I'm seeing the actual roof edge here. It's the literal projection of this roof. If there are rafters involved in this model, let's just as an example turn on all layers, and I believe that there are rafters here. Okay, so framing 3D, we'll turn that layer on as well. Sure, we'll just turn those on. A little bit of tinkering here, and then I get my actual exposed rafters, rafter tails. If I had a ridge beam across here, that would show. So here I have my actual 3D document. For the light fixture component, if we go back to our object here, I guess this is the lamp. That's fine. Let's go ahead and put in a light fixture. I'm in a meeting, buddy. Sorry, kids are interrupting. Anyway, so light fixture here, I'm going to get the actual symbolic view of that light fixture. Whether you use objects or lamps or whatever as your light fixture, you can actually get the symbolic view of this thing. However, I don't know, I can see that this might be placed relative to a plumbing fixture, for example, but I don't see where it's placed relative to my ceiling treatment. So I actually have to show my 3D document as a trace reference, and then that allows me to say that this thing is centered between these two exposed rafters. So whatever that is, 10.25 inches between. If I wanted to dimension this between those, I would put the dimension here in my floor plan. Annotation RCP, get that on the right layer, right? And then I can dimension this in my floor plan directly. So here I can say that like this is equal, right? So here I have basically my floor plan and my 3D document as two separate things. Let's go ahead and turn off that trace reference. But I want to composite these things together. So I would go to my reflected ceiling plan. I'm just going to drag another one here, and we'll expand that down and delete this thing. Go to that layout, and now we can composite these together. So we drag the first floor plan over. There's the floor plan. And then we drag our 3D document. Oops. Excuse me, drag that over. And it can be a little bit tricky to align these things if you don't know where they're supposed to align to. So the grids or columns or some common layer that they might have together. Now, if I bring, let's go display order and bring the floor plan to the front. Part of the magic of that, the graphic override for the floor plan is that the floor plan can be in front of the 3D document, and anything that's showing on the floor plan is going to be transparent, so it's not going to mask out the ceiling treatment. And then I can see here actually that I do have a misalignment, so having that annotation from there means that I know now that I'm lined up at least left to right. So anyway, that's the method that I use for 3D document, is sort of a composite method of, or sorry, for the reflected ceiling plans is a composite method of 3D documents and floor plans in the view map. The critical thing there is that they each have their own layer combination, they each have their own graphic overrides, and if necessary, they each have their own model view options.